But we did have a symbol in town that we could take action with and show some solidarity with not only the people that live within Barrens who may potentially be impacted by things like tariffs, but also the farming community around us. That's really important to Barrens being a viable community. We're very much based on our agricultural past, and we need to do something to recognize this. So I propose to council that we remove the flag, the American flag, which is flown on the Barron's flagpole for decades now.
Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Today, we're turning our attention to the growing economic and political standoff, one that is putting pressure on local economies, industries, and even small town traditions. In just under 2 weeks, US President Donald Trump will announce whether he plans to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods entering the United States, along with an additional 10% tariff on Canadian resources, including oil and gas. Now, this comes on the heels of a sweeping 25% tariff already placed on steel and aluminum imports. This economic move has sent ripples through industries nationwide, from manufacturing hubs to small resource-based communities. But beyond the boardrooms and trade negotiations, these tensions are now making their way to the heart of one small Alberta village. For years, the Canadian and American flags have flown side by side at the entrance of Barrens, Alberta, a small community in southern Alberta with deep historical ties and a unique connection to Americana. Those who saw the 1978 Christopher Reeve Superman film might know the community of Barrens, Alberta as Smallville, Kansas. But now, in response to escalating trade tensions, one local councillor is asking, should this still be the case? Clinton Bishop, a first-term councillor in Barrens, put forward a motion to remove the U.S. flag in a show of local solidarity to Canada's resource community, agriculture sector, and Canadian businesses. A small but symbolic gesture that speaks to the broader frustration Canadians are feeling in the face of growing economic uncertainty. Today, we speak with Councillor Bishop about the lead-up to the vote, what it means for Barrens, and how this tiny town, known for a surprising connection to one of America's most legendary figures, is taking a stand for truth, justice, and the Canadian way. From the smallest village to the largest city, across every region of the province, Alberta municipalities represents the communities where over 85% of Albertans live. AB Munis provides a united voice for 265 of Alberta's 330 municipalities, including summer villages, towns, cities, and specialized municipalities. As Alberta's largest municipal group, AB Munis listens to municipal leaders and advocates for solutions to their common issues. Additionally, AB Munis supports local governments by providing services specially designed to meet their operational needs. And they bring their members together regularly so they can share ideas and information so that their communities can thrive. Check out Alberta municipalities at abmunis.ca and follow them on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, now called X. Councillor Bishop, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about this kind of momentous change in Barron's sort of entrance, and that is the removal of the American flag. Why was this important for you to make this motion at this most recent council meeting of Barron's?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Chris. It's always good to see you and be on the podcast. So, with the recent trade almost war, and maybe it's happening again, you never really know. It seems to change by the hour. We wanted to do something as a small community. There's very little we can do on the economic stage, but we did have a symbol in town that we could take action with and show some solidarity with not only the people that live within Barrens who may potentially be impacted by things like tariffs, but also the farming community around us. That's really important to Barrens being a viable community. We're very much based on our agricultural past, and we need to do something to recognize this. So I propose to council that we remove the flag, the American flag, which is flown on the Barron's flagpole for decades now. Most people, when I ask them, have no idea why. I still don't have an answer as to why we flew the American flag in the first place. It's always just been there for most people's lives. So it's kind of an interesting shift for something that's sort of always been there in town when you drive past that welcome sign.
Now, this move, this motion, you announced earlier this month in February that you were going to be bringing this motion forward. What was the discussion like around the council table? Because it got put on the agenda, and then you've debated it. And tell us what the result is and what's the next steps here.
Yeah, so there's an interesting suggestion from a member of administration that if we're taking it down, could we look at replacing it, at least for a little while, with another symbol like the Blackfoot Confederacy flag? And that actually had me shift my entire approach to the American flag topic. And I decided instead make a motion to permanently replace the American flag with the Blackfoot Confederacy flag, which represents the indigenous people within our area. This kind of comes on the heels of the Blackfoot Signage Project, which the local community futures has been administering. And we just recently had our sign installed. So we had a name assigned to us by the elders, which basically translates to land of plentiful wheat, which really, goes in line with the industry that's in the area and also the town slogan, which is Wheat Heart of the West. So with that sign being put in and now the Blackfoot Confederacy flag being flown, I think it's a great a great symbol of that truth and reconciliation that we need to be working towards, and especially because there's a lot of people in the community that identify with that flag and in the area that identify with that flag, and even places that may not be in Barrens. It's nice to know that we're recognizing them.
Now, change is always hard for some people, and it's always one of those things that it's always been there. So why not just leave it up? When this motion came forward, when you put it out on social media, did you hear from residents of Barrens that let's go with solidarity of Canadian goods or resource sector, or did you hear anything from the people of Barrens about removing the potential flag? Now it is going to be removed.
Yeah, so I heard a bit of both. So some people are very supportive of removing it. And even once they learned that we would be replacing with the Blackfoot flag, I had people after council coming up and being very appreciative that we were taking a symbolic stance like this and replacing it with, I think, a flag that probably should have been there sooner, to be quite frank. I mean, when we're looking at the flags that fly on our poles, some people make the argument, well, they're our neighbors, so we should have the American flag. And you should make the stronger argument, the Blackfoot Confederacy, these people are much closer neighbors and the people who were on these lands first. It just makes more sense to be flying that flag instead of the American flag. And of course, we always have, just as we did with the Blackfoot signage, there were people that bigoted in their comments about having signage and symbols of other peoples, but we have to sort of ignore that commentary and really focus on the good that comes with these symbolic changes.
Now, for those who may not know where Barron's is, but they probably have seen it on this big silver screen or on the golden screens in movie theaters, Barron's is home to the original location for Smallville, Kansas in the 1978 Superman film with Christopher Reeves. It was the high school location and the train chase location. This is a kind of a big moment for Barron's because that is part of Americana lore. And now you're saying we're going to stand with Canada. Uh, are you expecting potential some pushback from Americans saying you're taking away the American heritage that is Smallville, Kansas? That is our history.
I guess I could argue we're taking it back. I mean, Superman is Canadian after all. So originally a Canadian content creation. So I guess we're just saying it's ours again.
So what's next now? So now this is a small gesture, but it's a big, important pact that you are making here. What else is Barron's doing to strengthen its Canadian resource sector? Because you do have a large farming community around you. This is not the first and only step that Barron's is taking. Is there other practices that you're going to be looking at, or is this just one piece of the cog that we're working at right now?
Yeah, I wish there was more that we could do, but being a small community, there's very limited things that we can take action on when it comes to doing things like buying Canadian. All I can do is, as a counselor, encourage people to think about what they're buying at the grocery stores, think about the vendors that you're working with. There's not a whole lot as a village we can do. We don't have a lot of buying power. We aren't buying a lot of things even. So to transition from one supplier to another, not something that's really available to us, but we can encourage folks in the area to do that. One of the things I will
But
say is that,
your resource sector, the agriculture community, is going to feel these tariffs if they get put on. And you know
yeah,
that, and I know that. And I can imagine that they're probably looking at this as a good move, but there's got to be something else that the council, and I'm saying this as the Royal Council, I know you're just one part of that piece, but what's your message to the agriculture community saying this is a good move, but we need more?
well, we stand by you. Even in the ag sector, we have to recognize that they have limitations in what they can do as well. At the end of the day, the Americans are a large consumer of the agricultural products that we're producing. So finding new markets is obviously going to be important if we end up in a trade war situation. And I know that those industries are working towards those things. China has always been a big customer of ours. So Asian markets, of course, are always there for growing into, as well as Middle Eastern markets. That's also a growing area for agricultural products. What Barron's can do to support that, unfortunately, nothing. We just don't have that power as a council. We're not a major metropolitan area. Even the industry that exists around Barron's doesn't exist within our corporate boundaries. So, should we want to create any supports for those folks, we just don't have the mechanisms to do that. And that's just the reality being an urban municipality that's quite small in population and quite small in geography.
You are this motion came forward. I believe it was passed on February, and correct me if I'm wrong, 11th, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, the motion was made. What's the steps to remove the flag and put up the Blackfoot flag? Has it already happened? Is it going to happen at a ceremony where Blackfoot Confederacy elders will be there to witness the raising? Have there been conversations about that, or is there one person just going to go out there tomorrow and put up a flag and remove the American flag?
I'd like to say we'd organize something, but I think doing it fast is the priority right now. So, at the very least, the American one is going to come down. We'll have to source a Blackfoot Confederacy flag. So, that's a discussion for a future date as to how we might want to do that raising and make it symbolic. But priority right now is for Public Works to just be removing that flag. And I'm expecting it'll happen this week, given that the motion was just passed on Tuesday. So, I expect that American flag will be down by Friday.
Well, you'll have to keep us in the loop. My last question, you are you keep on saying you're one small piece in the puzzle, but this is a big momentous change. Um, do you think you're going to make an impact if more municipalities like yours continue to do these small changes that show that we are one Canada? We're, to quote Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the official opposition, we're Canada first, and we're going to start looking internally rather than externally about showing our Canadian pride? Is this just a symbolic change that you're hoping that people will not realize that there was an American flag there?
I'm hoping that it causes people to pause for a moment. While it seems very small and symbolic, it can have that rippling impact. I'd love to see our neighbors doing something similar, whether and that may not be removing an American flag, but perhaps putting more symbols of Canada, its history, its people, just to recognize that. And it's that constant reminder. And it really then starts, weaving into your psyche a little bit, which historically we don't normally become very patriotic, but this is one little tiny thing that Barons can do to demonstrate that patriotism and remind people that it's important that we stick together, especially when things are largely unknown.
Councillor Bishop, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking time out of your day to sit down and do this. It's always a pleasure, and I will be following this, and I hope to see some photos of the American flag gone, because every time I've gone through Barron's, I've always seen the American flag, and I always wonder why it's there. And I know you and I have chatted about that a few times before, but now that it's gone, I'm looking forward to getting back to Barron's and taking a photo of the new flag that's there with the Blackfoot Confederacy. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. We hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite platforms and follow us on social media at Cross Border Network. For even more content and learn more about the stories and people we feature on the show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time on Municipal Affairs. Till then, everyone.